I never thought my daughter's whisper would shatter 30 years of lies in an instant. But there she was, standing in my childhood home, a small gift box in her hands, her eyes wide with confusion as she leaned in close. "Mom," she whispered, "why does the card say, 'To our real granddaughter'?" I'm Sarah Mitchell from Portland, Oregon, and for 3 decades, I believed I knew who I was. The disappointment, the black sheep, the one who could never measure up to my mother's impossible standards. Every holiday, every milestone, every family gathering was another opportunity for her subtle put-downs and not-so-subtle comparisons to my perfect cousins. But that whisper? That innocent question from my 8-year-old daughter unraveled everything I thought I knew about myself, my mother, and why I was never enough. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, or wondered why some parents seem incapable of unconditional love, stick around. This is the story of how I discovered the truth that had been hidden from me my entire life, and how that truth finally set me free. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Growing up in suburban Seattle, our family looked picture perfect from the outside. My mother, Eleanor, was the PTA president, charity organizer, and neighborhood go-to for everything from bake sales to fundraisers. My father, Richard, was a successful accountant who spent most of his time working or golfing with clients. Then there was my older brother, Michael, who sailed through school with straight A's and a football scholarship to Stanford. And me? I was just there, the afterthought, the disappointment. I never seemed to fit into the mold my mother had prepared for me. My room was always not tidy enough. My grades were good, but not like Michael's. My clothes were a bit too alternative. My friends were interesting choices. Nothing I did was ever quite right in her eyes. I remember my Sweet 16 party, which should have been a milestone celebration. Mom insisted on planning everything herself, a formal garden party with all of her friends' daughters invited, most of whom I barely spoke to at school. I wanted something casual at the local bowling alley with my actual friends, but that was tacky. During the party, I overheard her telling her friend Janet, "We do our best with Sarah, but she's always been different, not like the rest of us." The way she said different, like it was a disease. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried for an hour while my party continued without me. Mom later told everyone I wasn't feeling well and how dramatic I could be sometimes. Then there was my high school graduation. I'd worked incredibly hard to be selected as a speaker, practicing my speech for weeks. When the day came, I scanned the audience as I approached the podium. Empty seats where my parents should have been. They showed up during the final musical performance, Mom with a plastered smile and some excuse about traffic. I later learned they'd been at my cousin Melissa's dance recital across town. "We've seen you speak at debate club before," Mom explained casually, "and Melissa only had this one recital." I moved across the country for college, desperate to escape the constant feeling of inadequacy. I studied art history at NYU, fell in love with Marcus, a brilliant architecture student, and stayed in New York after graduation. I called home dutifully every Sunday, enduring Mom's subtle criticisms and updates about Michael's latest achievements. When Marcus and I got engaged, I decided to make one last grand gesture to win my mother's approval. I spent 3 months planning the perfect Thanksgiving to announce our engagement, flying home with elaborate decorations, preparing Mom's favorite recipes, even wearing the pearl earrings she'd given me for graduation, the only gift she'd ever chosen that felt personal. I wanted so badly for her to finally look at me with pride, to welcome Marcus with open arms, to be the mother I'd always craved. That's when everything changed. The day before Thanksgiving, while helping Mom with preparations, I found a small wooden box hidden in the back of her desk drawer while looking for serving spoons. Inside were letters, dozens of them, addressed to Eleanor and Richard Mitchell, all with the return address of Western Washington Adoption Services. My hands trembled as I opened one dated just before my birth. "We understand your concerns about the birth mother's history," it read. "However, we assure you that these genetic factors are not necessarily hereditary, and with proper upbringing, your daughter should develop normally." I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Adopted? All those years of feeling like I didn't belong, like I was fundamentally different from my family, there was actually a reason, and they had never told me. I carefully replaced everything and said nothing, deciding to wait until after dinner the next day to confront them. I needed time to process, to figure out how to approach this bombshell that explained so much of my life. What I didn't know then was that my little girl, Lily, would force the truth into the open in a way I never could have predicted, and that the secret my parents had kept wasn't just about adoption. It was much, much worse. Fast forward 8 years. I'd built a life I was proud of in Brooklyn with Marcus and our daughter Lily, who had just turned 8. After the adoption discovery, I confronted my parents over the phone, but they minimized everything. "We were going to tell you eventually," Mom said dismissively. "It never seemed like the right time. And really, Sarah, does it matter? We raised you as our own." That non-apology only widened the rift between us. Our contact dwindled to obligatory holiday cards and brief, strained phone calls on birthdays. I'd made half-hearted attempts to find my birth mother, but the agency had closed, and the records were sealed. Part of me was afraid of what I might discover. What genetic factors had concerned my adoptive parents so much? My relationship with my mother remained distant but civil. I'd learned to set boundaries and protect myself from her criticism. But when Dad was diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's last spring, something shifted in me. Despite everything, he'd always been the gentler parent, the one who'd occasionally sneak me a wink of encouragement when Mom was being particularly harsh. I decided it was time for Lily to know her grandparents better, before Dad's condition progressed. So when Mom called to invite us to their 40th wedding anniversary celebration in Seattle, I surprised everyone, including myself, by accepting. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked as we packed our suitcases. "The last time we visited, you couldn't sleep for 3 nights afterward." "I'm not doing it for me," I explained, folding Lily's favorite sundress. "I'm doing it for Lily and for Dad. Whatever happened in the past, she deserves to know her family." The 3-hour flight from JFK to Seattle felt like crossing more than just a country. It was traversing back into a world I'd tried so hard to escape. Mom greeted us at the door with her perfect hostess smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes. "Sarah, you've lost weight," she said, her standard opening line, impossible to tell if it was approval or criticism. "And Marcus, still with that beard, I see. Lily, my goodness, you've grown. Come give Grandma a proper hug." Lily, usually outgoing and affectionate, hesitated before stepping forward for an awkward embrace. Kids have radar for insincerity, and hers was clearly pinging. Dad's hug was warmer, though I noticed the slight tremor in his hands that hadn't been there before. "It's good to see you, kiddo," he whispered, and for a moment I felt like a child again, craving his rare moments of approval. The house was exactly as I remembered, tastefully decorated, spotlessly clean, and utterly devoid of personality. The only new addition was a wall of family photos in the living room, carefully arranged around a large portrait of my brother Michael with his wife Claire and their twin boys. I scanned the display and found exactly 2 photos of me, my high school graduation and my wedding day, both small and positioned on the periphery. "Where am I, Mommy?" Lily asked, peering at the photo wall. "You weren't born when Grandma put these up, sweetie," I explained, noticing Mom's slight frown. "I've been meaning to update it," she said, not meeting my eyes. "There's just never enough time." The anniversary celebration was scheduled for the following evening, an elegant dinner party with 50 of their closest friends. That first day passed in a blur of tense small talk and Mom's barely disguised criticisms. "Sarah, you're not still working at that little gallery, are you? Such a shame you never used your degree properly. Lily's reading skills seem a bit behind for her age. Have you considered tutoring? That casserole would have turned out better if you'd followed the recipe exactly." Each comment was a tiny paper cut, insignificant alone, but agonizing in accumulation. I caught Marcus watching me with concern as I retreated further into myself, becoming the quiet, approval-seeking daughter I'd fought so hard to outgrow. That night, after Lily was asleep in the guest room, I found Dad alone in his study, looking at old photo albums. "Why did you never stand up for me?" I asked quietly, the question I'd wanted to ask for decades finally escaping. He looked up, startled, then sighed deeply. "It's complicated, Sarah. Try me. Your mother, she has her own demons. Things weren't easy for her when we brought you home. Because of my genetic factors?" I asked sharply. He flinched. "You know about that? I found the letters, Dad, 8 years ago." He closed the album slowly. "It wasn't about you, Sarah. It was never about you." Before he could elaborate, Mom appeared in the doorway, her face tight with suspicion. "What are you two discussing so seriously?" The moment shattered. Dad mumbled something about reminiscing, and I excused myself to bed, that familiar knot of frustration tight in my chest. The next morning, while Mom was busy directing the caterers and Dad was napping, Lily and I explored the backyard. She was fascinated by the koi pond I'd loved as a child. "Mom, why don't we visit Grandma and Grandpa more?" she asked, trailing her fingers in the water. I hesitated, searching for an age-appropriate truth. "Sometimes families have complicated relationships, sweetie, but that doesn't mean we don't love each other." She considered this with the solemn wisdom only children possess. "Grandma doesn't smile with her eyes when she looks at you, and she looks at me funny too." Out of the mouths of babes. "What do you mean funny?" Lily shrugged. "Like she's trying to find something in my face." A chill ran down my spine, but before I could respond, Mom called us in to get ready for the party. As guests began arriving, old friends, neighbors, colleagues I vaguely remembered from childhood, the tension ratcheted higher. Michael and his perfect family arrived, and Mom blossomed, parading her grandchildren around like prized possessions. Then came the moment that set everything in motion. As guests mingled before dinner, Mom announced it was time for gifts. "Richard and I requested no presents," she said with practiced modesty, "but for those who insisted, we've set up a table in the corner." People moved toward the gift table, and I saw Lily slip away from where she'd been playing with her cousins. She approached my parents with something in her hands, a small box wrapped in silver paper that I didn't recognize. "Grandma, Grandpa, I found this with your names on it," she said brightly. "It was under the big chair in the living room." Mom took the package with a confused smile. How thoughtful of someone to hide a surprise. She opened it casually, then froze, her face draining of color. Dad peered over her shoulder and inhaled sharply. Something passed between them, a look of pure panic. Mom quickly closed the box, but not before Lily had glimpsed inside. My daughter turned and ran back to me, her eyes wide with confusion. She tugged at my hand, pulling me down so she could whisper in my ear. "Mom," she whispered, "why does the card say, 'To our real granddaughter'?" The room seemed to tilt beneath my feet. What did you say, Lily? The card with the present. It said, "To our real granddaughter on meeting you at last." Lily's innocent face showed only confusion. But I'm their granddaughter, right? And so are Emma and Sophie. She referred to Michael's twins. I looked across the room at my mother, who was whispering frantically to my father, the gift box clutched in her white-knuckled hands. Something inside me, something that had been bending for 36 years, finally snapped. "Stay here with Dad," I told Marcus, who immediately recognized the dangerous calm in my voice. "Sarah, maybe this isn't the time," he began, but I was already moving across the room, propelled by decades of hurt, crystallizing into righteous anger. I reached my parents just as Mom was trying to slip away toward the kitchen. "Mom," I said, loud enough that several nearby guests turned to look, "I think we need to talk about that gift Lily found." Her social mask slipped into place instantly. "Not now, Sarah. This is hardly the time or place for—" "For what?" I pressed. "For the truth? I think 40 years of lies is long enough, don't you?" Dad stepped forward, his hand trembling, more pronounced. "Sarah, please, let's discuss this privately." "Why? So you can dismiss me again? Tell me it doesn't matter? That I'm overreacting?" My voice was rising despite my attempts to control it. "I found the adoption letters 8 years ago, Mom. I know I was adopted. What I don't know is who my real granddaughter is supposed to be." A hush fell over the nearest guests. Mom's face hardened. "This is completely inappropriate. You've always had a flair for drama." That familiar dismissal, the same one she'd used my entire life to minimize my feelings, only fueled my determination. I reached for the box she was still clutching. "Absolutely not." She pulled back, but in the struggle, the small card fell to the floor. I snatched it up before she could react. The handwriting was unfamiliar, slightly shaky. "To Eleanor and Richard Mitchell," I read aloud. "After 36 years, I'm overjoyed that you've agreed to meet your real granddaughter. Jessica has been looking forward to meeting you both. Thank you for finally acknowledging her existence. Catherine." The room had gone completely silent. Even the caterers stood frozen by the dining room door. "Who is Catherine?" I demanded, my voice echoing in the silence. "And who is Jessica?" Mom's face had gone from pale to mottled red. "This is not happening," she hissed. "Not now. Not like this." "Then when, Mom? When were you going to tell me that not only am I adopted, but apparently my birth mother has been trying to contact you? That I have a— what? A sister?" Dad stepped forward, his face stricken. "Not a sister, Sarah." And suddenly, I knew. The pieces clicked together with terrible clarity. The mysterious genetic factors, my mother's inability to bond with me, the constant comparison to Michael, who was so clearly their biological child. "She's my daughter," I whispered. "Catherine is my birth mother, and Jessica is my biological daughter." Mom made a small, strangled sound. Michael pushed through the stunned onlookers, his face confused. "What the hell is going on?" "Tell him, Mom," I challenged. "Tell everyone how you adopted me but kept the truth from me my entire life. Tell them how you've apparently been in contact with my birth mother, my 16-year-old birth mother, I'm guessing, and now you're meeting the child she had after me, the real granddaughter." "You have no idea what you're talking about," Mom snapped, but her voice wavered. Dad's shoulders sagged. "Eleanor, it's over. We can't keep doing this." He turned to me, his eyes filled with tears. "Your birth mother, Catherine, was 15 when she had you. Her parents forced her to give you up. She tried to find you when she turned 18, but by then the adoption was closed. She wrote to us for years, letters we never showed you. You had no right, I cried, tears streaming down my face now. She had another baby a year after you, he continued, as if compelled to finally release the weight of the secret. She kept that child, Jessica, your biological half-sister. Catherine reached out again recently after finding us through one of those DNA ancestry websites. She asked if we would meet Jessica, who's been curious about her half-sister, about you, her whole life. I felt like I was drowning. And you agreed to meet her but still didn't tell me? Were you ever going to tell me I have a sister out there, that my birth mother has been looking for me? Mom finally seemed to remember we had an audience. We can discuss this later, she said through gritted teeth. No, we can't, I said, my voice steady now, because there is no later, not for us. You've had 36 years to tell me the truth, and you chose not to. Every time I felt like I didn't belong, every time I couldn't understand why my own mother seemed to find me so disappointing, it was because you never wanted me in the first place, did you? That's not fair, Dad protested weakly. Isn't it? Then why keep my birth mother's letters from me? Why agree to meet my sister but hide it from me? Why treat me like an outsider my entire life? I turned to the room at large, no longer caring about propriety or appearances. I'm sorry to ruin the celebration, everyone, but I just discovered I have a birth mother who's been trying to find me for decades, and a sister I've never met. And my parents, these two people celebrating 40 years of honesty and commitment, decided I didn't deserve to know. I turned back to my mother, whose face had gone completely rigid. The irony is, all I ever wanted was for you to love me, to be proud of me. I spent my whole life trying to be good enough for you, never understanding it was impossible from the start. I walked over to Marcus and Lily, who were watching with wide eyes. We're leaving. Marcus nodded, always my rock, and took Lily's hand. But what about cake? Lily asked innocently. Not today, sweetheart, I said, my voice breaking. I think Grandma and Grandpa need some time to think about the meaning of family. As we headed for the door, I turned back one last time. If Catherine or Jessica tries to contact you again, you will give them my number. That's not a request. My mother stood frozen in the center of her perfect party, surrounded by stunned guests, the carefully constructed facade of her perfect life crumbling around her. For the first time in my life, I saw something I'd never seen in Eleanor Mitchell's eyes when she looked at me: fear. We checked into a hotel near the airport that night. Lily fell asleep quickly, exhausted by the day's drama, while Marcus and I sat in the bathroom with the door closed, speaking in hushed tones. I can't believe this, I kept saying. All these years. Marcus held my hands. What do you want to do now? It was a simple question with an impossibly complicated answer. Part of me wanted to get on the first flight back to New York and pretend none of this had happened. Another part needed answers, all of them, no matter how painful. I need to find her, I finally said. Catherine and Jessica. The next morning, I called my father's cell phone. He answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting. I need Catherine's contact information, I said without preamble. His sigh carried 36 years of guilt. I'll text it to you. Sarah, I'm sorry. We thought we were doing what was best. Best for who, Dad? Because it certainly wasn't best for me. 10 minutes later, my phone pinged with a text containing an email address, phone number, and a short message. She lives in Olympia, about an hour south of here. I stared at the information, my finger hovering over the call button. What would I say to the woman who gave birth to me, then spent decades trying to find me? What would I ask first? There were so many questions crowding my mind that I couldn't isolate a single coherent thought. Marcus gently took the phone from my trembling hand. "Let me," he said, and dialed the number on speaker. A woman answered after 3 rings. "Hello? Is this Catherine Winters?" Marcus asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm calling on behalf of my wife, Sarah Mitchell." The silence that followed was deafening. Then a soft inhale. "Sarah? You found me?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "She's here," Marcus said gently. "We just found out yesterday about everything." Another pause. "Oh my God, they finally told you?" Her voice broke. "After all these years?" "Not exactly," I finally managed. "It's a long story, but I know now, and I'd like to meet you, if that's something you want. If that's—" She choked on what sounded like a sob. "I've wanted that every day since you were born. Yes, yes, please." We arranged to meet that afternoon at a cafe in Olympia. I asked if Jessica would be there too. "She's actually staying with me right now," Catherine said. "She just moved back from California. Is that okay? If it's too much at once—" "No," I interrupted. "I want to meet her too." The drive to Olympia was surreal. I kept checking my reflection in the visor mirror, wondering if I would see myself in Catherine's face, or if Jessica would look like me. Would we share mannerisms? The same laugh? Would there be an instant connection? Or would we feel like strangers? "What if they don't like me?" I whispered to Marcus as we pulled into the cafe parking lot. He squeezed my hand. "Impossible." We'd decided to leave Lily with her tablet in a booth away from our meeting spot, close enough that I could see her, but giving me space for this initial encounter. I didn't want to overwhelm her with too much too soon. I spotted them immediately upon entering. 2 women at a corner table, heads bent close in conversation. The older one looked up, and our eyes met. There was no dramatic moment of recognition, no cinematic gasp, but there was something, a familiarity in the shape of her eyes, the set of her jaw, that resonated deep in my bones. Catherine stood slowly, one hand pressed to her mouth. Next to her, a younger woman, Jessica, turned to look at me, her eyes widening. I walked toward them on unsteady legs, Marcus a reassuring presence behind me. "Sarah," Catherine breathed. Not quite a question, not quite a statement. "Hi," I said inadequately, suddenly shy. "I'm Sarah. This is my husband, Marcus." Catherine was petite, with warm brown eyes and graying auburn hair cut in a stylish bob. Jessica was taller, with my coloring but Catherine's delicate features. She looked to be in her mid-30s, my sister, just a year younger than me. "You look like Dad," Jessica said wonderingly. "Our father. I have pictures I can show you." "Please," I whispered, sliding into the booth. What followed was 3 hours of the most intense conversation of my life. Catherine explained everything. How she'd become pregnant at 15 by her high school boyfriend, Tom. How her Catholic parents had forced her to give me up, but couldn't stop her from having another baby when she got pregnant again the following year. I was more prepared the second time, she explained. I had already moved out, was working 2 jobs. My parents disowned me, but I had support from Tom's family. "Are you and Tom still together?" I asked. She nodded, smiling. 37 years. He's at home waiting by the phone. I told him I didn't want to overwhelm you with too many people at once. "Our dad," Jessica said, still staring at me like I might disappear. "He's been looking for you too." "We all have." Catherine reached into her purse and pulled out a worn envelope. "I've carried this with me for 35 years. It's the letter I wrote to you on your first birthday. I've written one every year since, hoping someday I could give them to you. With trembling hands, I opened it, reading through tears. My dearest baby girl, it began. Today you are 1 year old. I wonder if you're walking yet, if you've said your first word, if you like peaches as much as I do. I couldn't continue. You've been trying to contact me through my parents all this time? Catherine nodded. At first, they sent back my letters. Then they just ignored them. When open adoption became more common, I tried again, but they refused. When Jessica turned 18, we both started searching in earnest, but the records were sealed. We tried everything: adoption registries, private investigators. Then last year, Jessica did one of those DNA ancestry tests, and we got a match to your father's cousin. That's how we finally found them. And they agreed to meet you after all this time? Jessica exchanged a look with Catherine. Not exactly. We've been writing to them for months. They finally responded last week, but only to say they would meet me, not Mom. They didn't mention you at all. The gift was my idea. I thought if I brought something meaningful, it might, I don't know, break the ice. What was in the box? I asked. A silver frame with a picture of all three of us, me, Mom, and Dad, from my wedding last year, and an empty frame next to it, hoping we could take a picture with you someday. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I never meant to cause trouble. I just wanted to find my sister. I reached across the table and took her hand. You didn't cause trouble. You revealed the truth. There's a difference. As we talked, I learned that Catherine had gone on to become a nurse. Jessica was a teacher with 2 small children of her own. I was an aunt. Tom, my biological father, was a contractor who built custom homes. They were normal, loving people who had never stopped looking for me. "Can I ask you something?" Jessica said hesitantly. "What were they like as parents? Were they good to you?" The question hit me like a physical blow. How could I explain the complicated reality of growing up with Eleanor and Richard Mitchell? The material comfort alongside the emotional neglect, the constant sense of inadequacy that had shaped my entire personality. "They tried," I said finally. "My father was kind in his way. My mother struggled to connect with me. Now I understand why." "Did they ever tell you you were adopted?" Catherine asked quietly. I shook my head. Never. I found out by accident 8 years ago, but when I confronted them, they minimized it, said it didn't matter. Catherine's face crumpled. "I'm so sorry. When I chose them, they seemed perfect, financially stable, educated, with a son already. They promised they would tell you about me when you were old enough to understand." "It wasn't your fault," I assured her. "You were just a kid yourself." Eventually, I introduced them to Lily, who was immediately enchanted by the idea of a new grandmother and aunt. As she chattered away to them, I stepped outside with Marcus to clear my head. "They're lovely," he said simply. "They are," I agreed, still processing. "They're also strangers." "For now," he said, "but they don't have to stay that way." 2 days later, after extending our hotel stay, we met Tom, my biological father, and Jessica's husband and children. I saw echoes of myself in Tom's laugh, in the way he talked with his hands. His parents, my biological grandparents, were still alive, in their 80s, living in a retirement community in Florida. They wept on the phone when Tom called to tell them he'd finally found me. I had a whole other family, people who had wanted me, looked for me, loved me without even knowing me. I called my parents, Eleanor and Richard, one last time before flying home. "The gift Jessica brought," I said to my mother, What did you do with it?" A long pause. "It's here. Keep it," I said, "and whenever you look at it, remember what your secrets cost all of us." Dad got on the line. "Will we ever see Lily again?" The question broke my heart a little, despite everything. "That depends on you, Dad. If you want to be part of our lives, you need to accept all of me, including Catherine and Jessica and Tom. They're my family too now. And if your mother can't do that," he asked quietly, "then that's her choice. I'm done trying to be enough for someone who was never going to let me be." Back in Brooklyn, I hung the second empty picture frame from Jessica's gift in our living room. 2 weeks later, we filled it with a photo of all of us together: me, Marcus, Lily, Catherine, Tom, Jessica, and her family, taken during their visit to New York. "Mom," Lily asked, studying the two families side by side, "does this mean I have extra grandparents now?" I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair. "It means our family just got bigger, sweetie, and that sometimes the truth, even when it hurts, sets us free in ways we never imagined possible." It's been 3 years since that anniversary party changed everything. I'd love to tell you that Eleanor eventually came around, that she embraced our expanded family with open arms. But real life isn't always that neat. She and I still have a complicated relationship, fragile, distant, but no longer built on lies. Dad visits us regularly, though, and has developed a surprisingly warm friendship with Tom. They go fishing together whenever Dad comes to New York, two men united by their love for the same daughter. As for Catherine, Jessica, and the rest of my biological family, they've become as essential to me as air. We text daily, visit monthly, and celebrate holidays together. Lily adores her extra grandparents and cousins, soaking up the abundance of love like a desert flower after rain. The strangest part? Finding my birth family didn't just give me new relationships. It finally allowed me to become myself. Without the constant, gnawing question of why I never fit in, I discovered who I truly am. The gallery I worked at part-time, I bought it last year. That art history degree my mother dismissed, it turns out I always had the eye and passion for it. I just needed to believe in myself enough to take the leap. Sometimes the most profound healing comes from the most painful truths. If you're watching this and feeling like an outsider in your own life, remember, your story isn't finished yet. The plot twist that explains everything might be just around the corner. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life journeys of discovery and healing. And if you're searching for your own truth, I hope you find the courage to face it, no matter how difficult. Because on the other side of that pain might be the family, the acceptance, and the peace you've been looking for all along.